just because you're having a hard time right now in algebra doesn't mean that you're going to have a hard time later. So if you're struggling right now to learn algebra, just know that it doesn't have to be forever, and it could just change. It could just change. One day you could wake up and it could all make sense for whatever reason. There's a variety of reasons that people get stuck. In this video, I'm going to give you all kinds of tips for learning algebra, but the main message you should take away from this video is that if you're struggling, it can change and you can make it change. Just as a quick story, when I was a kid, when I was in 7th grade, I was really good at math. I was in these classes called gifted and talented. They used to call us ETs. Instead of GT for gifted and talented, they'd call us ETs. And I was really quick at doing math calculations. I remember racing against this girl in class to do like multiplication tables. But then I guess I went to a better school and they put me in an algebra class. And I remember sitting next to this kid. He was from India. He had glasses, was tall and skinny. And he was writing something down on paper, x plus y equals y plus x. And he wrote commutative. And then he did the associative property and then the distributive property. And I was looking at his paper and I was copying from him. And I remember thinking back to that moment, thinking, wow, I was cheating, right? That's so bad. But no, I was just desperate. I did not understand anything. After class, I went to the principal's office and I told the principal, hey, I don't know what's going on in this class. Can you please help me? And so he put me in another class. It was a geometry class, which was terrible. Had bad kids in it. They threw spitballs at each other. It was just not a fun class. And I didn't learn anything because the classroom environment was so bad. But fast forward several years later, and I was able to get it, and I got better. So it's temporary, right? A lot of times it's temporary. A lot of times I think that people go through phases in life where maybe their mind is just not ready to absorb the symbols that encompass algebra, right? Because before that, I was good at arithmetic, but once I had all the variables, it's like my mind just couldn't grasp them. And then perhaps my mind had to develop more or something. I don't know. So I'm going to give you some tips in this video for learning algebra. So let's start with the best way. What is the best way to learn algebra? Well, unfortunately, the best way is probably not the way you want to hear. The best way to learn any math subject, okay, the best way, the easiest way, the most effective way for normal human beings is to go to college and take a class. And that's not what people want to hear because that's hard, right? I mean, if you're not in school and you have a job, maybe you have a family, maybe you have a significant other, you have a life, to have to take time out of your life, to have to spend money, time, and energy on something is a big deal, right? Because your time is precious. It's the most important thing you have in your life. It's your time. So how you choose to spend it is key. And so making that choice to go to college and take a math class is hard. It's hard, but it's the best way. You have structure. You have a professor who may or may not be good. They have office hours probably. You can go talk to them. You can ask them questions. You have homework and you have tests. That's not fun, but that also gives you accountability, right? Having that accountability is a big thing because it forces you to work when you don't want to work. It forces you to be disciplined or you fail. And that's not fun, but at the same time, it forces you to learn. So a college class is definitely the best way. But what if you don't want to go to college? Well, I think the next best thing would be to take an online course. There's all kinds of websites on the internet, great websites, very popular websites that have interactive platforms and learning platforms. I personally have not used any of them. I haven't. I learn from books. But I do sell courses. I have math courses. I have a ton of math courses. Check out my website, mathsorcerer.com or freemathvids.com. And I have courses for algebra, calculus, proof writing, abstract algebra, advanced calculus, all kinds of stuff. And my prices are set currently, as of now, at like the lowest possible setting. So check them out, mathsorcerer.com or freemathvids.com. Or check out the links in the description. If you get my courses, use my links. So courses, that's I think the first way. An actual college course and then an online course as a second best. So if you don't want to take a course, if you don't want to spend money, because all of those things cost money, right? College courses cost a lot of money. Online courses are pretty cheap. A better way though, in my opinion, even though it's not the best way, but a better way, a more long-term way. This gives you more value in the long run, I think, perhaps, because it's something you have forever. It's to buy a book. It's to buy several books. So if you look behind me, I have all these books here. A lot of times I'll get comments like, oh, books are expensive. How do you have so many books? And I always think, oh, haha, if they only knew how long I have been buying math books. I've been buying math books. I don't want to date myself. It's been a long time. Not 20 years. I'm not at 20 years yet, but I've been buying math books for a long time, for a very long time. And I've been collecting. A lot of these books I bought new, they were very expensive. I bought some books for over $200. I mean, it's just been a lifetime of collecting math books. And the reason I have so many math books is because math is hard. And so when I was in college, I didn't understand anything, right? So I would go home, I would go over my notes, and I would just try to learn, right? Just try to learn. And I used more than one book because I was desperate, right? I was desperate. And that desperation drove me to buy a lot of books. And so since then, I've kind of been fixated on books. So what math books should you get to learn algebra? Well, the first thing you need, let's just assume that you're starting out, is a book on like very, very basic algebra. That's called typically intermediate algebra. There's also pre-algebra, but the intermediate algebra books will cover a lot of that stuff. And most people are ready for intermediate algebra / pre-algebra type books. Most people can do that. You know, if you didn't finish high school and you're going back to learn math, this is a good starting point. I didn't finish high school. I dropped out of high school in the 10th grade so I could play basketball with my friends. Big mistake, right? But I went back, I got a GED, I went to my local community college, and this is the first math book that I used, right? This is the first book I used to learn math. Now, it's not this exact copy. I do have the exact copy, but I don't know where it is. The exact copy I used was a soft cover. I know specifics, and this is actually an instructor's edition. But my copy was the student version, and it was a soft cover, and it's falling apart, and I don't know where it is. But it's the same edition. It doesn't matter which edition you get. It's called Intermediate Algebra. It's by Miller, O'Neill, and Hyde. And this book will have answers to the odd-numbered problems. It's thick, it's big, and it will last you a lifetime. 20 years from now, if it doesn't burn in a fire, if you don't throw it away, if you don't sell it, or if it doesn't get stolen, if you keep it, you'll still have it. Right? That's the nice thing about books, you know. You can keep them forever. And I always think, like, if someone breaks in and steals stuff from me, it's very unlikely they're going to steal my math books. It's not, I don't think it's a high, I hope it's not a high value item for people. So, great book. This is just the book I use. It's a really good book. And that's why I'm recommending it, because I used it. I would come home after class and I would sit on the kitchen table and I would do problems. I remember writing down, you know, m equals, you know, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, you know, the slope, change in y over change in x, and y equals mx plus b. I remember learning that sitting on the kitchen table late at night because I was taking a night class at first because I was working. And it was my life. It was my life. And I got a 100% on the first test, 100, I remember. Yeah. I know it's a long story, and I know stories bore people, but I'll tell you, I remember on my first test, I got in the elevator, and I got 100, and a girl said, congratulations. It was the weirdest feeling ever. So, and ever since then, I've just really liked math. So, great book. Perhaps a better book than this one, even though that was my first book. This is one that has been recommended by people on the channel here. A lot of people, a lot of subscribers have mentioned the Blitzer books. A lot of people, I know Annie, for example, is a subscriber here. She's always talking about the Blitzer books. So shout out to Annie for her comments. I've used Blitzer to teach college level courses. I've used the college algebra version of this book. This is the intermediate algebra book, and it's excellent. There's a reason these books are so popular. There's a reason Blitzer is a best-selling author. It's because these books are really good. So this is intermediate algebra for college students. By the way, I will leave links in the description of this video to all of these books. And when you click the link, just look for used copies. You can if you look for used, you can get them new too, but if you look for used in the listing, you can probably get them for a few dollars perhaps. I mean, a lot of times used books are pretty cheap. So a great book, equivalent to the other one. It doesn't really matter which one you get, you know, as long as you have one. So I would say definitely get one of those big, thick intermediate algebra books. You're definitely going to want to have one of those. The next thing you want to do is you want to get a college algebra book. So this is a step up. So if you feel like your algebra is okay, like you're good at adding like rational expressions, like you have some algebra skills, just jump to college algebra, skip that one and get something like this one. This is College Algebra Essentials by Blitzer. This is an older edition. So I used, I have it back here. I have the instructor's edition, the newer version that I used to use to teach this class in college. And it's a great book. I've read portions of it. I used to have a friend who used to always critique it. It was kind of fun, but it's a great book. It's a really good book. It's not perfect, but it's a solid textbook. Okay, these are textbooks. So these books are going to cost more money because they have more content, they have more examples, they have more exercises, and you get answers to the odds. So I definitely recommend getting textbooks. And again, I'll leave a link in the description. And we're going to talk about how you can use these books later, not just getting these books. What do you do after you buy them? I'm going to tell you later in this video. Then what you can do is, if you want to get supplements to these books, there's workbooks you can get. And here's two popular ones. There's a whole bunch on Amazon. I like these because they're cheap. There's some that are a little bit more money, but these are really cheap. So I always recommend these because they're inexpensive. This one has some basic algebra stuff. The big problem with this book is it's not a textbook. It's called Algebra Essentials Practice Workbook with Answers. It's by Chris McMullen. He has a PhD in physics. And the biggest problem with this book is that it doesn't cover everything. That's why you want to have a textbook first, then get this book. This is a workbook, so you can like write through it. You can do your problems in the book. So I definitely recommend it. And then there's this one here. This is just for pre-algebra, essential pre-algebra. So it's like very, very basic. Again, just it doesn't cost that much. It's a workbook. It's got some stuff in it. You know, it's good if you can afford it and if you want to supplement. These are kind of nice because you can just do a couple problems from them every day and get better. So if you want to take it to the next level, I thought I should include some books here for people who are a little bit more advanced. So this next book I want to mention is in Spanish. And you might say, why is it in Spanish? This is an English channel. Well, I also have a channel in Spanish. You should check it out. It's called Math Sorcerer Español. Just Google it, or yeah, just Google it. It'll come up. Or look on YouTube, Math Sorcerer Spanish or Español, and you'll see my channel. And this is a book that is written in Spanish. This is the most popular book probably in all of Latin America, right? This guy, Baldor, this Cuban guy, he left Cuba, went to Mexico, and then worked in the States for a lot of years. And he wrote a bunch of books. He's got a geometry book. He's got this book. And it's got insane exercises, right? And it has answers to every problem. I just got to smell it. My coffee smells so good. I love this book. Ridiculous. Sometimes when I talk about this book on my channel in Spanish, people always post like little crying emojis, right? Because people in Latin American countries have to actually use this book to take math classes. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to go to college and this is your textbook. Hardcore. This probably destroys a lot of people and probably kills a lot of souls, right? This is a really hardcore book. It's a great book. And it's beautiful. And I love this book. I think it's great. So I'll leave a link in case you want to check it out. Awesome book. It's got it's nothing like the English books, okay? There is no comparable book written compared to this one. Like the exercises in this book are that interesting. It's got easy exercises, but then like he takes it up like to like a whole nother level. Just insane book. And if you really want to go nuts, if you really want to go back in time, and you're a fan of like math history and you want to go back to like, you know, the days of G.H. Hardy and that old school British mathematics, because a lot of the mathematics from the past, you know, came from England, right? I mean, there's a lot of very famous English mathematicians. That's one of the reasons Ramanujan went to England, right, to study with Hardy. So, you know, Cambridge and all that, Oxford. There's a lot of old legendary schools that are just, you know, filled with tradition and history and like very, very pure hardcore mathematics. Well, I've got two books here from that time period. This is Higher Algebra by Hall and Knight. This is an older copy. This is a classic book. Not for the faint of heart. I don't recommend this book if you're just trying to learn algebra. Out of all the books here, don't get this one if you're just struggling. Only get it if you want to like sit down and like struggle and like, you know, have some tea and think, I'm going to read one page today. I'm going to try to understand just a few things from this book today. It's very hard. It's very hardcore. Even from the beginning, okay? Higher Algebra by Hall and Knight. I believe, I'm pretty sure that people in India use this book. So I have a lot of subscribers from India, and I'm pretty sure they comment and they say stuff like, oh, you know, in India, we use this book. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hardcore. I think they say that there's this test in India. I think it's called the JEE Advance, and some of them say that it's like a recommended book or it's a book they use, and very, very difficult, very hard to understand. It's got a lot of mathematics you're not going to find in the other books. Math that's not even taught in schools in the US. So yeah, it's really weird stuff in here. Another one, this is a reprint of Higher Algebra. And I'm pretty sure these people misspelled the name. I think it's Barnard, not Bernard. I think it's Barnard and Child, Higher Algebra. Again, very similar to Higher Algebra by Hall and Knight. Someone left a comment recently and they bought the book and they said, wow, you said the book is hardcore, but even the first page is hard. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. I told you it was hardcore. No joke, right? No joke. So very, very tough, old school British mathematics. So we've talked about books enough. So, what do? You've got some books, or maybe if you're taking a course, it's easy, right? If you're taking a course, it's easy to learn. You go to class, you do your homework, you go over the notes, you study for the test, do the best you can. But if you're doing self-study and you have books, it's hard. It's hard. There's all kinds of, interesting study techniques that people use, all kinds of fancy techniques like study for 25 minutes, rest 5 minutes, all kinds of things like that, which, they all sound good on paper, right? It all sounds good when you say it, when you write it down. But when you actually have to do it, it's hard. And I think the hardest thing about learning math is that, when you want to do math, it's easy. If you wake up, if you watch this video and you say, hey, I'm going to get the Baldor book because it's got really cool problems and I'm going to rock out some mathematics today. This is a great book for doing that, right? This is probably my favorite one from all of these is this one. That's great, right? If you have that motivation to sit down and do mathematics, then by all means do it. But it's those days where you don't have that motivation. Those days where, you wake up and you're like, I don't feel like doing any math today. I'm just burnt out, like I'm taking 3 classes in college. I'm working at Chipotle and I'm fighting with my girlfriend. And I just don't want to do any math today. I want to break. I just want to play video games. And sometimes those burnout phases last for a couple days. So what do you do? What do you do when you don't want to study? Well, that's when discipline takes over, right? The discipline eats motivation for breakfast. It's so much more important. And I think the best way to become disciplined and become good at mathematics is to simply do at least one problem every day, right? At least one problem. If you can tell yourself that you're going to do at least one problem, you're going to get better. Because if you don't feel like studying, on those days when you don't want to study, it's easier for you to tell yourself that you're going to do one problem. Because if you tell yourself you're going to do just one problem or at least one problem, then it's like, oh, it's only going to take me 5 minutes. What's 5 minutes? Pick up a pencil, pick up the Baldor book, open it up to a random page, and do a math problem. That's what I do. I do math every single day. Why? I don't know. But I do math every single day, probably because it makes me feel good. It clears my mind. I think math has a lot of benefits, so I do know why. But it doesn't really bring anything else to my life other than like self-fulfillment, It's not like I'm entering math contests or anything by doing algebra problems, right? It's not going to help me, do anything other than help myself. So tell yourself that you're going to do at least one math problem every day. And I think that's the best way to build that discipline. Because again, on those days when you want to do math, it's really easy, right? It's easy when you're motivated. It's easy when you listen to a good song or you watch a video. It's easy to motivate yourself from an external source. But on those days when you can't find that motivation, that's when you need discipline. And that discipline is built over time, over consistency. Try to think of it as, I have to do math every single day. I have to do this because this is what I do. Again, tell yourself you have to do math every single day. You have to do this because this is what you do. And then just try to do at least one problem a day. And it will make a difference, I promise you. It works. It works because it's what I do, right? It's what I do. I do at least one math problem every single day. Sometimes I'll do just like an integral, like something really easy. I'll do like a Calc 1 integral. Like when I'm really busy, I just don't have time. I'm making videos or editing or doing other stuff. Because I make a lot of videos, right? It takes a lot of work. So I work a lot on YouTube. And so like if I'm really busy and I just don't have time to do a problem, I'll just do something really quick, And then sometimes I'll sit down to do a problem and I'll end up doing math for 4 hours, So that's the best way, right? That's the best way. Kind of a long video, but hopefully this is giving you some insight on how to learn algebra. So again, the best way, take a course. Face-to-face is better, a college course. If not, next best thing is an online course and then books. There's also free YouTube videos and stuff like that, but I have a whole bunch. But you need to have some type of structure. So a course gives you the best structure. A book is also good, but a book doesn't really give you accountability. So that's why the idea of doing at least one problem is a good way. It'll get you started. A lot of times people think about things in life. I have a lot of friends that think about things and they have big ideas. I'm the same way. We're all the same way, but we don't actually take action. It's taking action that leads to success. right? Taking that first step. And so again, if you tell yourself you're going to do at least one problem, that's the first step to being successful in mathematics. What do you think? Do you have any stories for people? Any advice? A lot of people have cool stories when it comes to mathematics. I know a lot of you have old math books you've had for a long time. Do you have any recommendations for algebra? I think the coolest thing is when people have books from the past. You get people here on the channel like, oh, I'm 65 years old, and in 1981 I took, this math class at Purdue University. I don't know. There's just something about that that's so special. So if you have any cool stories, any advice for people here on the channel, leave a comment. People read the comments and it leaves an impact. Anyways, until next time, good luck, take care, and keep doing math.